Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the oral history, and today we're doing La Frontera. My name is Jasmine Bermudez, and I'll be interviewing my paternal grandparents, my Mama Licha, my Papa Beto, who are both from Michoacan. I ask about their bringing up and their life before crossing the border versus the treatment they received once they arrived in the U.S. My Mama Licha is from Comanha, my Papa Beto is from Zamora. When I asked my grandmother about her childhood, she explains that she did not go to school. Instead, she dedicated her time working with her father in labor, which was planting and harvesting maize as well as beans. She explains that she sacrificed her school to help out her dad because she noticed how much he suffered because he really needed the help.
Yo no quise ir a la escuela porque mi papá sufría mucho para, para trabajar en el labor. Y yo lo miraba a él cómo sufría con sus hijos. Y entonces dije, no, ¿quieres a tu papá? Síguelo. Y ya no fui a la escuela. Le dije, papá, yo no voy a trabajar, yo no voy a la escuela. Yo me voy a ir contigo. Ayudarte. Y ya me fui con él a trabajar. Todos los días en el labor.
However, my Papa Beto only described his life when he met my grandmother, and furthermore, when they got married, both at the age of 18, but it was not until they were both in their later 20s when they started working together and they sold at un mercado in Zamora, where they sold produce, vegetables, and fruit, which is what my family does now. During this time, they had 6 daughters, and it is also around the same time when my grandfather first migrated to the U.S. for the Bracero program, or as he refers to, el contrato.
El contrato de bracero. ¿Qué fue las condiciones como de trabajar? ¿Tenías un lugar para quedarse?
Sí, pues llegábamos a un rancho, como eran ranchos, y allí nos tenían donde dormir. Tenían así como apartamentos chiquitos, cuartitos ahí, para 2 o 3. Y pues eran las compañías pues ahí del rancho, piscando fresa, como así, tomates, todo, apio, todo lo que había allí en el campo, todo. Naranja, limones, todo.
As he describes, he came for work and he would also work other side jobs here and there. Meanwhile, in Michoacan, my grandmother would then give birth to my dad, their first son. But everything would change when my grandmother also crossed the border and rejoined my grandfather and had a family together in the U.S. These stories from all my participants, I noticed the themes of migration, liberation, and struggle. The micro story that I picked up on was how my grandfather was also one of the many men who was sprayed and fumigated upon his arrival for the Bracero program, which I did not know prior, and here's a clip of him explaining.
No sé si era nomás en Texas, pero le estrellaron con algo. ¿Así te hicieron eso?
No, sí,
¿Oh, sí?
Sí.
¿Y dónde fue eso?
Aquí en el centro, en Caléxico, ahí en el centro de Caléxico, echaban un polvo y decían que para que no se traiga unos piojos.
Ajá, eso es lo que dicen. Sí. Ajá.
Sus dientes, sus garrapatas, como decían.
Sí. Ajá.
Y te sprayaban como y ya, pues, ya ves, aquí hay muchas precauciones, no te dejan.
Nomás pasar, ¿verdad? Nomás
pasar así nomás. Sí. Pues sí, cuando pasas por la línea con el collante, pues no te chequean, pero cuando venían contratados, sí, hacían todo eso con uno, para estar seguros si no venían enfermos.
Also, another micro story was my grandmother talking about how before she crossed, her father was happy because he got to live to see her firstborn son, aka my dad being born, and he eventually inherited his sarape that he would lay on my dad's shoulder with the rifle when he was a baby. And to conclude, what I've learned was when going into the interview is that I had a good idea what was my grandparents' migration story, but I never put the timeline together. I wonder how President Diaz's regime affected Mexico and my grandmother's living situation with her family. I know that all of her childhood she worked with her father harvesting, then worked with my grandfather at the mercado, then they migrated to the US. And the two of them are finally together as a family, where their main source of income was from working at the orange swap meet, selling produce just like they did in Mexico. It is now closed, but my dad and two uncles inherited the skills of working the swap meet, selling produce just like their parents when they grew up, throughout their childhood as well. And it has also been passed down to me and my sister, and where we have been working since childhood as well. And produce has been intergenerational in my family, and in a way I feel connected to my grandparents because of it. And they both worked all of their lives and have been met with discrimination countless of times. But as my grandmother states, her migration was not so difficult, as she was able to make a plane trip, and she explains how she crossed at the perfect time because there was no restrictive laws, and the bracero program worked in my grandfather's favor when crossing as well. It was only a matter of days and probably less than a week. After doing some research, I do realize that they did come at a really good time, and some would say it was luck, because just in 1977, President Carter would ask Congress to make it illegal to hire undocumented aliens and increase enforcement of the Fair Labor Act. And then later on, Carter's request came to fruition when Ronald Reagan signed the Immigration Reform and the Control Act of 1986. My participants have experienced struggle, resistance, racial and social justice, as well as solidarity and liberation relevant to current structural issues such as immigration, as well as language policies throughout their experiences, as well as discrimination in the workplace, living condition, as well as almost facing homelessness, with a family of about 10. In concluding, the interview itself took about an hour and a half. In some questions there was a lot of hesitation, a lot of thinking and pausing, maybe a little bit of hesitancy to answer questions. If I didn't ask specific questions, I don't think they would have gotten brought up at all. But as in respecting boundaries, I also let my grandparents take the pace they needed, and by asking specific questions, I was able to get questions answered, which I'm very grateful for, that they took the time to sit down with me and drink coffee and talk things and help me with my interviewing process. So I'm very grateful for my family and partaking in this, and how their personal stories of migration and settling in the U.S. have contributed to a bigger overall community at large for the Mexican American community, Chicano community, and I am beyond grateful for their time. Thank you.